Hey everyone, Joe Ramstead here, really excited about this fourth and final tech bite of the semester, focusing on the idea of assessment. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the platform known as Quia. So first I'm going to provide a brief overview of Quia, some potential applications and an integration plan, and lastly a quick demo. So to get started, let's go over our roadmap. First, we'll describe the purpose and principles of Quia, then identify the hardware necessary to effectively utilize Quia, then provide a brief overview of the features of Quia. Then we'll apply the potential uses of Quia into an AF&R education program. And finally, we'll finish up the day by suggesting a potential plan for integration of Quia into a high school classroom. So let's use it. Quia is an online platform that teachers can use in order to collaborate with one another and also create, post, and evaluate student assessment activities for their individual classes. So a teacher can go in and create different classes for whatever courses they may be teaching in the semester, and each class will then receive its own personalized web page that students can access through their student accounts. I first heard of Quia this summer when I attended a Minnesota Association of Agricultural Educators woodworking workshop, and the workshop was taught by a few high school agriculture education instructors who have used Quia in their classroom successfully and have integrated it in order to better manage their student assessments. Because as we know as teachers, paperwork can be very overwhelming. Right now I'm a teaching assistant in an animal nutrition class, and there's about 130 students, and I just got their exams yesterday and I have to get them back by Monday, and the amount of paperwork that I have to go through is just ridiculous. So using an online platform such as Quia to track and monitor student assessment to eliminate all of that paper and maybe save a tree or two throughout your teaching career, it's a pretty good option, I think. So Quia essentially allows for students and teachers to really utilize the platform effectively and communicate with one another. So more specifically, however, teachers can flip their classroom and provide resources and assessments for students from the comfort of their home. And lastly, it also allows students, on the other hand, to attempt quizzes and assessments at their home as well, and also be the recipient of that flipped classroom, if you will. So got gear. There is a lot of gear that's necessary in order to successfully implement Quia, but most importantly, however, internet connection is required. So there's many ways that you can receive internet connection, as we all know, from a laptop, computer, an iPad, or even the cell phone app. While I personally haven't used the Quia cell phone application, I know several students within the agriculture instructors who are teaching that workshops classes this summer. They mentioned that a lot of their students used the app and it worked really well. So students can download this app and take quizzes and assessments and watch videos from their home screen on their cell phone. The challenge, however, as I mentioned in all three of my other Tech Byte presentations this semester, is equitable on-demand access. So some students might not have a cell phone or a laptop or a computer or have internet connection at home, and we need to be conscious of that as teachers. So whenever you do choose to implement Quia in your classroom, make sure that you provide students with the opportunity to come in before or after school to use your devices in your classroom, or potentially the computer lab at school if that's available. You don't have to be a one-to-one school in order to implement Quia, but like I mentioned, just making sure that all students have access to the same opportunities and internet connection will be really important in order to see success with Quia. So students don't really need to know a whole lot before using Quia. I would say just general internet etiquette, knowing how to access a website and create an account with the password that they're actually going to remember and not lose. Several times throughout the semester, I talked about that last week with the Agriculture Experience Tracker, but making sure that students are able to effectively utilize an account is probably the only major thing that they need to know before using Quia themselves. So overall, my evaluation of this tool, Quia, would be a 9 out of 10. It's very appropriate for high school learners. It allows them to learn from home or from the school bus or wherever, as long as they have internet connection. Student accounts are very easy to set up and manage from a student perspective. And as a teacher, you also have access to going in and helping students with their accounts as well if they're having troubles. One of the coolest features of Quia, I will say, is that you have the ability to copy assessments and web pages from previous classes or from other teachers that you've connected with through the online application. So you can collaborate with other teachers from across the state or even the nation. If they're teaching a similar or identical class as you, you can copy and paste study decks or assessments or surveys that they've used in their classes and implement them right in your classroom. No need to recreate the wheel, as long as they have given you access to their previous class pages, which especially in the agricultural education community, sharing is very, very popular amongst us because we're all teaching very similar classes. Unlike a math teacher who might teach Algebra 1 and Algebra 2 or just a couple of general classes, an agriculture teacher might be teaching between 4 and 6 completely different classes. They might start their morning teaching students about artificial insemination in animal science class, and then doing some floral designing in an intro to agriculture class, and then maybe in the afternoon finishing off with some supply and demand in an agriculture economics class. So a lot of diversity in there throughout the day. So any resources that teachers can have to copy previous assessments from other instructors is really, really important and useful. There's also a gradebook feature in Quia. So a lot of schools use learning management systems that are outside of Quia, but like I know my school used TIES, and that was a really great learning management system from a student perspective personally. But Quia could be a great way for students to track their grades if a teacher just wants to track everything there and then just import grades to the TIES gradebook or Canvas or whatever the school is using for their LMS that year. And also, there's minimal teaching on how to use the technology from the teacher perspective. Just as long as students are able to create an account and access the class webpage, you should be good to go. The only major critique I have, though, and the reason I gave it a 9 out of 10 as opposed to a 10 out of 10 is that it costs money for a teacher account. So I don't believe it costs money for students to create accounts. In fact, I know that it doesn't cost money because I created a student account this summer to participate in the woodworking workshop. However, to create a teacher account beyond 30 days of their 30-day free trial, you do need to pay, and hopefully your school district will cover that, or some funding within your agriculture education department, but just know that that is a requirement in order to create an account long term. So uses for an ag, food, and natural resources program, there's a lot of them. First and foremost is tracking and grading assessments and student progress, saving on that paper so you don't have papers and piles stacked up on your desk and just grading everything from a computer, pretty easy. However, this is probably the most important features. The second one that I have on here, maintaining student records on safety assessments. So you can save test results and scores from very over a long period of time on this learning management software, Quia. One of the coolest things, however, though, is that as agriculture teachers, we need to save records on our agriculture mechanics students passing safety quizzes for up to 7 years in order to cover our program in case a student were to cut off their arm or get into an accident using equipment, because they could then go back to the school and potentially sue you or your school for quote unquote not teaching them properly. But if you can go back and have records from up to 7 years, you can mitigate that risk of a lawsuit, because if a student got 100% on the table saw test that you gave them in your classroom, and then they used the table saw and demonstrated that they knew how to use it with you supervising, and you're able to track that on this software like Quia, you can print out their results, bring it to court, or send it to the student that's trying to get into a lawsuit, and prove essentially that you taught them and that they knew how to use the table saw at one point, so that you're not getting in as much trouble if that were to happen. Second, FFA, as we know, is a major part of a successful agricultural education program. There's a lot of resources on Quia that agriculture teachers from across the nation have created to help prepare various career development event teams, whether it be from the Fish and Wildlife Career Development Event in Minnesota with identification, or small animals, or even just concepts from different CDEs like agriculture communication or agriculture mechanics. Teachers can pool their resources and use these different classes that are related to FFA to help coach their teams at home as well. So some steps to success in order to ensuring that this is a successful tool within your classroom. First, ensure that all students have internet access and access to a digital device that they can use regularly. Then you'll want to create a teacher account, which is pretty easy to do. Again, there is a small fee associated if you want to use it for more than 30 days. Third, have students create their individual accounts. Again, teachers can go in and send invitations to students to join the class. Otherwise, you can provide students with codes and they can go in, and if they already have an account, just enter that code and they're automatically enrolled in your class. Also, there are a variety of YouTube tutorials and also just FAQs on the Quia website that students and teachers alike can use if they're running into problems. And also, of course, when students do run into problems, being there to troubleshoot and help them through the process is really important. So that ends my little presentation. So we'll head over to Quia to see how this all works. So again, we'll just start here at frequently asked questions. There is a lot of information here that you can go through if you do run into a problem. I personally hadn't used Quia from a teacher perspective until preparing for this presentation, but this guide helped me tremendously. So everything I'm going to show you, I either learned from self-experimenting on here or through this FAQ. So I went in and I made an Intro to Ag Food and Natural Resources class. It's pretty easy to create a class. This is your first step. You just got to go in and create a class, enter the name, the date that the class ends, and again, you can enroll the students or students can self-enroll themselves. So I'm not going to create a class because I already did one. So I set up an Intro to AF&R class and entered the names of students. So these students, hypothetically, I could enter their email addresses there, and they would then be receiving an email invitation to join the class. Pretty easy. And then there is a class web address. So if students don't necessarily have an account right away, they can click on the class web page or my personal profile and see the information there. And then we can go to the various quizzes and activities that we have. So I already set up a quiz for students to take about food and farm facts. As we all know, or as we may know, the Farm Bureau publishes a food and farm facts book every year, and I think it's a great resource that we can use as teachers. But I have my copy here and I created a quick little 4-question quiz about it. So students can go in and enter their name in order to access the quiz. And then if students go ahead and take the quiz, it will look like this. So they'll go in and enter their responses and then submit their answers. And when they do, I will receive a notification that a student submitted the quiz. So I went in and submitted one for one of my hypothetical students a little while ago. And I can go in and edit the quiz if I wanted to. Pretty easy. I can add different types of questions and whatnot. I'm going to go back. But then I can grade them. So this is where it really gets fun. So Jacob Jacobson went in and took the quiz, it looks like. So I can go ahead and assign points to them. So the question was, how much money does the average farmer receive for every dollar spent on an agricultural commodity? Why does the statistic matter? So if I were grading this, I would give 1 point for the correct statistic and 1 point for their analysis at the end. So Jacob said, a farmer receives 30 cents for every dollar spent on agricultural commodities. This statistic is important to me because it shows that farmers do not receive enough money for their hard work that they invest into their crops and animals. So Jacob wasn't exactly right on his price. It's actually around 15 cents. So in the comment box, I could say, thanks for submitting. The correct answer was around 15 cents. But I do agree that this statistic is very important. Great job. Okay, so I could give him 1 out of 2 points or 2 out of 2 if it was just a completion activity, but we'll hit submit and then it automatically grades him and he will receive that notification from his account if he has one. And then I could grade his second question. What's the most interesting fact that you learned? That corn is grown in every state, including Alaska. Agree, that's an awesome statistic, so I could go in and enter a point. Now I don't have to enter a comment if I don't want to for every question, but just an option. So Jacob will receive his score. He got a 4 out of 5, which is pretty awesome. So then he can go in from his perspective and see his grade reflected there if he logged into his account. So that's just a general overview of Quia. You can also create surveys and other activities. I haven't personally gone in and done it yet, but it looks like from the tutorial videos I watch, it's very similar to creating a quiz, which is very easy to do as well. Just come up with a title, description, and you can pick which type of questions you want to ask on your quiz. It's a very useful tool. I highly encourage each of you to go ahead and consider using it in your classroom despite the original cost. You can play around with it for 30 days for free if you would like I'm doing right now. And hopefully someday when I'm an agriculture teacher, I can use some funding from the department or from the school to cover the cost of Quia, because it's just a great way to cover any liabilities in an agricultural mechanics class, like I mentioned previously, or also just to collaborate with fellow teachers on assessments and making sure that we're providing good opportunities for students to demonstrate their learning. So there you have it. I'm really looking forward to using Quia in my future classroom, and I hope you learned a little bit more today. Thanks, everyone.